Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and in today's video, I will be running through my team selection ahead of Game Week 15. Welcome back everyone to another video. Now today's video might be on the shorter side because it's a quick turnaround to Game Week 15, and obviously we've only got limited time to take in as much information as possible. If you did enjoy today's video, I'd massively appreciate it if you could leave a like and hit subscribe, and if you want to always be notified when I go live with a new video, hit that notification bell as well, and you'll always get that message pop up when I do post a video. A quick look back at Game Week 14, probably my worst game week of the season so far, truth be told. 58 points from me and a big red arrow down to 420k. Now, I don't want to overreact because I'm still perfectly happy with my overall rank, and if I'd been coming from 800k and got up to 400k this week, I'd be absolutely delighted. So it's all about perspective, and I'm not getting overly upset with one bad game week, but it is progress lost. And again, truth be told, it does feel like I made a bit of a mistake with my transfer. So I sold Ismail Assar, no problem with that. But bringing in Brian Mbeumo ahead of what I thought was a good triple of fixtures. So West Ham, Wolves still to come, and then Bournemouth, which it looks like he'll be available for before he heads off to AFCON. I thought that those looked like three good game weeks that he could probably get a couple of hauls from. Was not impressed with his performance against West Ham. And of course, Man United in general looked pretty toothless. And now, especially in hindsight, it looks like, well, I had the money for Phil Foden. I probably should have just done that move. And of course, he got 17 points in Game Week 14. Obviously, I wouldn't have known that going in, but knowing that I had that opportunity to bring him in and didn't take it, and now I probably want him anyway, it's a little bit frustrating. And, you know, we don't go through a full FPL season not making mistakes. And maybe that's a mistake I need to take into account in the future. But either way, Mbeumo's still got a couple of good fixtures to come. So fingers crossed it does pay off in the short term. But of course, I will need to get rid of him in a couple of game weeks anyway. Now, looking at my squad, at least I captained the right player. So Erling Haaland getting 14 points. Arguably unlucky not to get a bit more out of that game as well. Hit the post twice, but obviously happy enough with 14. Bruno Fernandes picked up DEFCON. So did Semenyo, by the way. So again, for attacking midfielders, that's not really what you're hoping for, but at least they got 4 points, I suppose. And then the real nightmare came from the rotation that I massively underestimated in Game Week 14. I had three players that didn't start: Saka, Timber, and Thiago, all in the same game. Of course, they all came off the bench, so I didn't have to rely on my bench. So I'm glad I didn't take the -4 to secure my bench any further. However, obviously only Saka getting the goal there, it led to a less than ideal score this week. So a big red arrow. At least I avoided the hits, but I did have Dubravka coming off my bench for Nick Pope with no clean sheet there. And Anderson as well, the player that I relied on to avoid the hit in the end, got a 0-pointer. Didn't even pick up DEFCON against Man City either. I think he was 1 point off hitting that threshold. So look, a frustrating game week, not ideal, but we'll put this one in the past. I've got one free transfer to use before we get reloaded to 5, and I'm still in a healthy position. I'm not going to overreact to one bad game week. So let's move on and let's take a look at how I'm setting up for Game Week 15. Okay, so taking a quick look at my Game Week 15 side before any transfers have been made. And on paper, I'm pretty happy with it, especially given that we had the three rotations in Game Week 14. I think Timber, Saka, and Thiago are all very likely to start Game Week 15. So at least that one's in the past and I can move forward from a position of strength there. Lacroix is always good for 90 minutes, you would think. And that fixture against Fulham, obviously I've got a defender from both sides of that. So Anderson and Lacroix. I can see it being fairly cagey. Crystal Palace aren't creating a lot of chances at the moment. They're keeping the scoreline fairly low. Obviously, I'll say that, and then it will end up being 5-4 again, like it was with Fulham against Man City. But you wouldn't think that would be as high scoring. So I can absolutely see both of them hitting DEFCON and it being a fairly cagey match. And if it can end up 0-0, then I'm absolutely loving life because I've got no attacking assets for Palace anymore. Obviously, I've sold Ismail Assar, who's injured, and I don't have Mateta either, who I am concerned by the minutes for him moving forward. Obviously got taken off early yet again, and a really tight fixture crunch coming for Crystal Palace too. So I'm happy enough with them. Into my midfield, I'm going with a midfield strong 5, so some big expensive assets in there. Hopefully they can start paying dividends. Saka, of course, coming off the bench with a goal was always good to see, and he should be comfortable to start against Aston Villa, given that he's had that rest. Fernandes and Mbeumo, not impressed whatsoever with their midweek performance, but again, they've got a few days rest into the Monday game. I'm not absolutely over the moon with it, but Wolves are a team that are really struggling at the moment, so I'm holding out hope at least that they can come good. And it was only 1 week ago, or not even a week even, that Bruno Fernandes picked up 2 assists, got an 11-pointer, and we were all loving him. And Mbeumo has been a bit frustrating recently, but the data's still okay. So I don't want to throw my toys out the pram with that one. They will stay for the immediate future. And Wolves is a good fixture as well. So I'm not going to overreact to that one and sell either of them just yet. Of course, Mbeumo will go in a couple of game weeks. Semenyo, I've talked about it on my transfer plans video. He is a player that is on the chopping block, of course. Not easy fixtures to come, although Chelsea at home, we've seen them struggle against Leeds. It could be a fixture he does well in, absolutely, and he will get good minutes, you'd think. But there are obvious opportunities there, and I will look at making a transfer in that move, in that position potentially. Up front, perfectly happy with Thiago. He's had his rest. I think he'll probably start moving forwards, and Dango Otara will go off to AFCON as well. So one less player to worry about in that rotation mix. So I imagine his minutes will be pretty strong moving forwards, and with some very good fixtures to come. And of course, no question about captaincy for me this week. Erling Haaland with the armband. Could there be an issue with rotation or minutes being reduced? Maybe, but I'm not going to back against him. There's just no question about it. Even though Sunderland have been very good this season, it's a home fixture for Man City, and that is usually good enough for Erling Haaland. So perfectly happy with him. The obvious issue is in goal. Nick Pope probably looks like he's going to be out against Burnley again. So I've got Dubravka coming off my bench against Newcastle. I've got the money to make a keeper transfer to any keeper in the game. I can get up to Raya easily enough, so that is an option. But away at Aston Villa, do I think Aston Villa score in that game? Yeah, it's quite likely. It's probably more likely than not. So do I want to spend my one free transfer on upgrading effectively Dubravka, because it would be him coming off my bench away at Newcastle, to Raya away at Aston Villa, or another keeper? I'm not sure if that's the most potent way of using my one free transfer, given that I get 5 next week anyway, and I can make a keeper transfer then if I want to. So I'll probably make peace with Dubravka in goal away at Newcastle. I'm not expecting anything from it, but 2 or 3 points from him would be absolutely fine. And then, I mean, the upside of Raya, even if I went with him, would be probably 6 points, even if everything went well. So it's like a 3-point benefit at best. And hey, who knows? Maybe Dubravka saves a pen or gets a few saves. Who knows? So I think I'm going to make peace with the goalkeeper for 1 more week, and then probably move Nick Pope out to another keeper in game week 16 with my 5 free transfers. And Semenyo is probably the player that I'm looking at moving on. So let's have a look at how my team is setting up with a move locked in. I have made that move early last night after the Man United game. So let's have a look at what the move is and what my plans are moving forwards. Right, a quick one actually, before we go into my moves. I forgot to tee this one up. I always do this section. It's going to be really obvious, really easy for me this week. So apologies, it will take 1 minute, but I have to tick it off. Captaincy rankings for this game week. I'm picking Erling Haaland. It's as simple as that. He's at home to Sunderland. It's a great fixture. The expected points are fantastic. Could you pick a Man United player and go against the grain? Absolutely. Away at Wolves, it's possible that either Bruno or Mbeumo or Can You Do Well, but they're not over Erling Haaland for me right now. If you want to go differential, Phil Foden is also probably in the mix, but it's nowhere near Erling Haaland for me. So captaincy rankings, I'm on 10 out of 14 so far. It's a good hit rate. I'd love for that to continue at home to Sunderland for Erling Haaland. So let's tick that one off and let's move on. Okay, so taking a look at my team with the transfer locked in, a bit like a lot of people this week, I've been very tempted by Phil Foden, and I had the money to do it. And I didn't want to miss out on the second price rise in the last few days for him. So I bought him in early for Semenyo. After the Man United game was done and dusted, just wanted to make sure that Bruno and Mbeumo got through that unscathed. And I have made the move for Phil Foden at home to Sunderland this week, giving me that Man City double up in attack with Erling Haaland. A quick word on Phil Foden, though, because I don't think it's screamingly obvious that you need to get him, because there is that risk of rotation at home to Sunderland. He's been getting extremely good minutes, and we do know that when he's in form, when he's playing like this, Pep is very reluctant to take him out of the lineup at any moment, even with fixture congestion. So look, I mean, I've backed him to start because I've brought him in, but is there a risk that he doesn't start? Absolutely. But even if he didn't start against Sunderland, and that would be worst case scenario, of course, I'd get Senesi off my bench at home to Chelsea. Look, it's not great, but at least it's a playing defender who is pretty good on DEFCON. I can make peace with that. And then after this week, Foden's got great fixtures anyway, and he will continue to get good minutes. So look, there's a risk this week, but I think the risk is worth taking for me personally anyway, given that a keeper transfer is fairly low upside. Foden's got the potential to haul against Sunderland. And then, like I say, even if he does get benched this week, which is a possibility, I still would want him in the long term anyway, and I could survive with Senesi coming off my bench. So with that in mind, I've moved Semenyo on, who doesn't have the best 2 fixtures coming up, but I do have a plan to get back to him if I want to ahead of the Burnley game in game week 17. So before we wrap up the video, I just wanted to maybe quickly have a look at my transfer plans moving into game week 16 and beyond, because of course I've got that keeper issue, and I would quite like a route back to Semenyo for a couple of good fixtures later on. So let's take a look at how that might shape up in the next few weeks. Okay then, so I'm using the excellent FPL.team. If you get the chance to use it, it's completely free to do so, and you can plan ahead. It is a fantastic free tool to have a look at the next couple of game weeks. Now, I've loaded in the Phil Foden transfer here to my team, so this will look familiar. Of course, the money in the bank is slightly off because I made the move early, so I've got 0.4, not 0.3. This week, I think I'm fairly happily set up. I'm also delighted with the amount of power I've got in that midfield. Now, obviously, I say that and it's all going to go massively wrong and they're not going to get any points, but it does feel like my game week is going to be lost or won in that midfield, especially the 4 men being Fernandes and Burmo, Saka and Foden. If those 4 do what I think they're capable of doing, this is looking like a pretty strong team. I've got the forward line that I think most people are going to be moving towards pretty soon, if not already. And the back line maybe is my weak point. I don't have Daniel Munoz. I'd love to have him very soon. I don't have double Arsenal defense. Again, ideally, very soon I'd have that. But I've got DEFCON guys in there. Timber's had his rest. I'm perfectly happy with it. So I think I'm relatively well set up for this game week. Moving across to game week 16, of course, we get our 5 free transfers. At time of recording, I've got 2 pathways I like. Option number 1, I've mentioned it already on an earlier video this game week, would be to move out Nick Pope for either Kelleher, who I think would have Leeds that week. Is it Leeds? Let's double check that. It is Leeds, followed by Wolves. So that's looking pretty good. And then obviously I've got the money to upgrade elsewhere, and it gives me a starting keeper with a decent fixture that week. Although Dubravka off my bench, Fulham at home, isn't a nightmare. So I could go Kelleher, I could go Verbruggen, but then bench Verbruggen. So in one scenario, I could basically do that move, switch over Dubravka, because otherwise I burn my transfer anyway, right? So obviously other things can go wrong. I could get an injury and use it elsewhere, but I could put Verbruggen on my bench, and then by the time we get to game week 17, I've got him to come in for Sunderland at home. So that would be one way of doing it. If I didn't do Verbruggen and I went for the keeper I actually wanted in game week 16, Raya, it would give me double Arsenal defense. I'd need to find 0.4 to make that move, but that would be very strong. The player that I'm most likely to sacrifice right now would probably be Senesi. Now, I've currently got the exact money, and again, I'd have 4.5, not 4.4. I've got the exact money to get Vandenberg. Now, that might be a bit of a random one, but I think of all of the 4.5 million defenders right now, he's up there as one of my favourites. I could go for another, but this is one I'm liking the look of, because he's got a good set of fixtures. He's got 3 home fixtures in the next 4. Clean sheet potential against Leeds, Wolves, Sunderland in a little bit as well. The fixtures continue through to about game week 25, where I likely will be looking at wildcarding anyway. So I think Vandenberg as a rotatable option, not one that I need to start every week, is fine. And of course, because Lacroix plays Man City at home that week, I can go for Vandenberg in that one. And again, I'd have to move fairly quickly because I imagine I get priced out of that one fairly soon. But it's one option to consider to get to Raya. And then The next week afterwards, Mbeumo's off to AFCON. We think that he's going to go straight after game week 16. And then, of course, I would have the money to go straight back to Semenyo there with my 1 free transfer. And I'd still have 4 free transfers to use. If I roll in any week, I'd go back up to 5, and then I'm in a strong position. So I could go Semenyo. I could go for a Liverpool asset who have good fixtures at that point as well. Cody Gakpo will be affordable, Szoboszlai as well. Or I could go for Yankuba Minter too, who's easily affordable with some good fixtures coming at this point as well. So you've got Sunderland at home, bench him for Arsenal away, West Ham at home, away from home, Burnley at home, absolutely fine too. So if I wanted to downgrade and use the money elsewhere to make an upgrade, that spot where Semenyo is at the moment could easily be Minter instead. So that's the plan at time of recording. Of course, I would have to move fairly quickly to do the David Raya version of that. But I also don't hate going with the cheaper keeper, like a Kelleher, for instance, or a Verbruggen, and then maybe using that extra money to upgrade one of my defenders to Daniel Munoz, who I'm very jealous of at the moment. I wish I owned him. Looks like the best defender in the game. So that's another route that I will consider, but I've mapped it out ahead and I've got a few different paths that I like the look of. Either way, Phil Foden's in this week. I like my midfield 5, but we'll see how it goes. But fingers crossed, it's a green arrow and I can get back up to where I was before game week 14 hit me. Fingers crossed they all start. And yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like, hit subscribe. I would massively appreciate it if you did. And massive good luck in game week 15 as well.